Good evening from Washington. I'm Larry O'Connor. And well, there's still some questions about these midterms elections. Yeah, it's midterm election week, apparently, as we figure out what, if any, majority Republicans will have in the Senate or the House. We have to ask also, what will the Republicans do with those majorities, should they get them? Or what could they do with them? What will they be able to do with them? And who will be running those majorities? All those questions actually are still a little bit up in the air. And also, what's next for the Republican Party leading toward the 24 presidential elections? Well, one person is incredibly sourced and has maybe some insight into all those questions. She's Susan Ferrechio, national political correspondent of the Washington Times. And just a whole lot of questions still, Susan. Thanks for joining us.
Larry, thanks for having me on. Certainly there are a number of really big questions right now. Everyone's looking at 2024. The 2022 election is not quite over because we're still counting the ballots, but already everyone's has their sights on the presidential election 2 years from now and who will be running. Of course, President Trump is, been staking his claim as the GOP primary leader, and he's expected to make some kind of announcement as early as next week. And then we have the rising star of Ron DeSantis, who in a blowout victory this week really solidified his position at the top of the primary field. So this is the intriguing thing on the Republican side. What's going to happen between these two candidates if DeSantis even decides to run? Trump has not made his announcement yet either, but that's the idea. We think that that's what the race is shaping up to be. And on the Democratic side, of course, the question about who will be the nominee there. Will Biden run for another term, or will things change in the coming months or years and he decides he's not going to run? Then we've got to scramble on the Democratic side as well. So it's shaping up to be a very exciting, even though it's 2 years away, and even though the votes aren't even counted yet in 2022.
Listen, we're a D.C.-based news and politics show, so we live for this stuff. And let's stay in the presidential realm for a minute before we talk about this new Republican majority, however small it might be. Kayleigh McEnany, a chief advisor to President Trump at the end of his administration and clearly a Trump ally, she voiced her opinion yesterday that President Trump should delay this announcement lest the very important runoff election in Georgia for the control of the Senate may get sort of overshadowed by his announcement, or lest that race actually become a referendum on President Trump. Anyone in the Trump's inner circle actually hear that, and maybe this might stick? What do you think?
Well, I know there's people who I've talked to in his inner circle who have the view that the shortest time he's a political candidate, the better off he'll be. And they're not excited about an immediate announcement. They pushed him from announcing prior to the midterms, and he had been planning on a big sort of kind of the big midterm victories, launching him into a 2024 campaign next week at his Mar-a-Lago estate. And now there's talk about, hold on now, the entire Senate majority may hinge on Georgia. And that race isn't happening until December 6th. It's called a runoff election where the two top candidates, Warnock, the Democrat, and Walker, the Republican, will face off. They're nearly tied under 50% right now. People are concerned Trump will get in and we'll have a redo of what happened in 2020, where it was right after the January 6th attacks at the Capitol. Trump had lost. He came to Georgia and campaigned and talked a lot about his belief that he didn't really lose the election. People felt like that soured voters, depressed the turnout, and led to a double victory by Democrats in this once red state. That's the concern. The idea is, some people are saying, President Trump, if you're going to announce you're running, why not wait until there's a victory in Georgia and perhaps a decisive tipping of the Senate into Republican hands? Why not do that then and sort of make it all hands on deck for Georgia right now, where we just focus on getting Walker elected? That's what some of the insiders are telling him. Now, is he going to listen to that? We all know that Trump notoriously is just an independent-minded person and doesn't always listen to his advisors. But certainly you're hearing it. And when they're saying it publicly, they're really trying to send a message, I think, to the president. Yeah,
that's wise. And also, by the way, it would be a smart political move for President Trump to delay this. First of all, it would show to many skeptics of President Trump that, yes, he can put his own ego on the back burner and let this play out. And if Walker wins, he can claim credit for it, which would make his announcement even that much more compelling. But your very influential byline, Susan Ferrechio, is on the cover of this morning's Washington Times saying that GOP eyes are turning to the Ron DeSantis show. Which GOP eyes exactly? Is there a real serious movement here to sort of bypass the former president and elevate Ron DeSantis to the national ticket?
Well, you know which eyes matter the most, Larry? The eyes with the money. They're definitely eyeing Ron DeSantis. The thing to keep in mind when you're looking at who the formidable candidates are, it's the ones who have the financial backing. Ron DeSantis has dozens of extremely wealthy donors who got behind him for his reelection bid in Florida. And the thought is that this was partly because they view him beyond a Florida governor. They see him as a potential candidate in 2024. For those out there who are looking for an alternative to President Trump, he is the strongest person right now to run. It's very early, too. You know, we make these predictions. Let's face it. We all thought Rudy Giuliani would have been a primary leader way back when, and his campaign fizzled out. You can never tell what's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
But here in this early stage,
Susan, I keep reminding my friends that 4 years ago, I remind my friends all the time that 4 years ago, no one could beat Jeb Bush at this time. Oh, don't even get into the race because Jeb Bush can't be beaten. So, yes, it's way early on. Can we you covered Capitol Hill for decades. I believe you started when you were 12, Susan. Can you tell me, there's already some long knives out for Kevin McCarthy. There's some people suggesting that they don't want McCarthy to be speaker should they get the majority because he didn't deliver on the big red wave. Is that legitimate talk? And is there anyone actually emerging as a challenger?
It's always legitimate talk because their margin may be narrow, and to be elected speaker, it's a unique election. You need pretty much everyone in the party to come along. It's not a behind closed doors, you get a simple majority, you become the party leader. No. You have to get the votes of nearly all Republicans because remember, on the House floor on opening day, both parties vote for the speaker. So Democrats will all vote for someone on their side, and then they're not going to help. So Republicans need everyone on their side to get a majority because they'll control the majority narrowly. So if 10 members of the House Freedom Caucus say they don't want to vote for McCarthy, well, you got a real problem. So you always take those things seriously. However, this is fairly standard. There are factions in every party, and once they're in the majority, the factions become louder and squeakier, as I say, and they are looking for something. Usually what this will result in is some promises, some commitments from McCarthy to them that will get them enough of them to sign on, and there'll be some who don't. That's the standard way this usually goes. And that's because there really is not anyone else who's willing to run against McCarthy, A, and B, can get nearly every single Republican vote if their majority is narrow. So I know this is all very weedy and sounds like I'm teaching a math class, but really it is about the math. And McCarthy is winning the math right now. And the Freedom Caucus is sort of a negotiation process where he talks to them, and he won't win them all, but he's got to win enough. And that's the process that's happening right now. It'll all get worked out between now and likely next week. He'll get solidified support by then. If not, then you've got some more intrigue that will lead up, of course, into opening day, the first week in January.
Well, and we love that intrigue, too. It's always exciting and fun, and we don't mind getting in the weeds at all. In fact, we were going to name this show Getting in the Weeds, but didn't get past the market test. Susan Ferrechio, always good to have you. Thanks for joining us. We'll be touching base with you again soon. There's more to come on O'Connor Tonight.